Edgar Cayce, known as America's sleeping prophet, provided some of the most fascinating insights about consciousness during coma states through his psychic readings. His work, preserved by the Association for Research and Enlightenment, offers compelling perspectives on where souls journey when the physical body lies unconscious. These revelations challenge conventional understanding of consciousness and suggest profound spiritual activities occurring beyond our physical awareness. This topic resonates deeply with anyone who has watched a loved one in a coma, wondering about their inner experience and spiritual state. Medical science can monitor brain activity and bodily functions, but it cannot map the soul's journey during these mysterious states of suspended consciousness. Cayce's readings suggest that what appears as unconsciousness to us may actually represent heightened spiritual activity and purposeful soul travel to other dimensions of existence. Throughout this exploration, we will examine Cayce's specific readings about coma states, his descriptions of soul travel during unconsciousness, and the spiritual purposes these experiences serve. We'll investigate how these insights align with near-death experiences and modern consciousness research. Additionally, we'll explore the healing and learning opportunities that souls may encounter during these profound states of altered consciousness. My research into Cayce's work spans over 2 decades, including extensive study of the original readings housed at the Association for Research and Enlightenment. Having personally witnessed family members in coma states, I've found Cayce's insights both comforting and enlightening. His readings offer hope and understanding during some of life's most challenging and mysterious moments, providing spiritual context for these profound human experiences. Understanding Cayce's revelations requires exploring the fundamental nature of consciousness itself and how it operates independently of physical brain function. The prophet's readings suggest that consciousness exists on multiple levels simultaneously, with the soul capable of extraordinary journeys when freed from normal waking constraints. This foundational understanding opens doorways to comprehending the magnificent spiritual adventures that may unfold during coma states. Edgar Cayce's readings consistently portrayed consciousness as multidimensional, operating simultaneously on physical, mental, and spiritual planes. According to his insights, the soul is not confined to the physical body, but can travel freely through various realms of existence. This concept forms the foundation for understanding how consciousness functions during coma states, when normal brain activity is severely diminished, yet the soul remains vibrantly active in other dimensions. The Cayce material describes consciousness as composed of 3 primary levels: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious or soul mind. During waking states, these levels work together through the physical brain, but during coma, the soul consciousness becomes liberated from physical limitations. This liberation allows for enhanced spiritual perception, communication with other souls, and access to higher realms of knowledge and healing that are typically unavailable during normal waking consciousness. Different spiritual traditions have recognized similar concepts throughout history, from Tibetan Buddhism's descriptions of consciousness during the Bardo state to ancient Egyptian beliefs about soul travel during sleep and death. Shamanic traditions worldwide acknowledge the soul's ability to journey beyond physical boundaries, particularly during altered states of consciousness. These cross-cultural parallels suggest universal recognition of consciousness operating independently from physical brain function, supporting Cayce's revolutionary insights about coma experiences. Consider consciousness like a radio capable of receiving multiple frequencies simultaneously. During normal waking states, we're tuned primarily to the physical frequency, but during coma, the soul radio shifts to spiritual frequencies normally filtered out by brain activity. Just as a radio continues functioning even when switched to different stations, consciousness remains active and purposeful even when disconnected from normal physical awareness and responsiveness. This understanding of multi-level consciousness sets the stage for exploring the specific spiritual activities and destinations that Cayce described souls experiencing during coma states. His readings reveal that rather than existing in void or nothingness, souls in coma engage in profound learning experiences, healing processes, and spiritual communications that serve important purposes for their evolutionary growth and preparation for either return to physical life or transition to spiritual realms. Cayce's readings revealed that souls in coma states often engage in intensive spiritual education and healing activities across multiple dimensions of existence. According to his insights, these souls frequently attend what he described as spiritual schools or healing centers in higher realms, where they receive instruction from advanced spiritual teachers and undergo processes of soul purification. Rather than experiencing unconsciousness, these individuals participate in highly conscious activities that serve their spiritual evolution and prepare them for important decisions about their earthly existence. The sleeping prophet described coma patients as often serving as bridges between the physical and spiritual worlds, facilitating communication and healing for both realms. Their souls might work as spiritual messengers, helping other transitioning souls or providing comfort to grieving families through dreams and intuitive impressions. Some readings indicated that souls in prolonged comas chose these experiences before incarnation as opportunities for accelerated spiritual growth and service, transforming apparent tragedy into purposeful spiritual work. Cayce's readings addressed variations in coma experiences based on the individual's spiritual development, the circumstances causing the coma, and the soul's specific lessons or missions. Some souls used coma time for deep healing of karmic patterns, while others engaged in advanced spiritual study or preparation for significant life changes upon awakening. The duration and depth of coma states often correlated with the complexity of spiritual work being undertaken, with each case serving unique purposes in the soul's eternal journey. However, Cayce also acknowledged that not all coma experiences involve such elevated activities, noting that souls heavily attached to material existence might remain closer to the physical plane, experiencing confusion or distress. His readings emphasized that spiritual development and soul preparation significantly influence the quality and purpose of coma experiences. Some individuals required extensive spiritual assistance from guides and loved ones to navigate these states effectively and derive maximum benefit from the experience. These profound insights into coma consciousness lead us to examine the specific spiritual realms and activities that Cayce described souls accessing during these mysterious states. His detailed descriptions of soul travel, spiritual learning centers, and communication with advanced beings provide fascinating glimpses into the rich inner life that continues even when physical awareness appears completely absent to outside observers. Edgar Cayce described souls in coma as traveling to various spiritual realms that exist in higher dimensions beyond physical perception. These realms include healing temples where souls undergo energetic restoration, educational centers where advanced knowledge is imparted, and meeting places where souls connect with guides, deceased loved ones, and other spiritual beings. According to his readings, these destinations are not fantasies, but actual dimensional spaces where consciousness operates according to spiritual rather than physical laws. The healing temples mentioned in Cayce's readings serve as cosmic hospitals where souls receive treatment for spiritual ailments, karmic wounds, and energetic imbalances that manifest as physical illness or life challenges. Souls in coma often spend time in these temples, receiving intensive healing that addresses root causes of their conditions. The treatments involve light therapy, sound healing, color therapy, and energy work, administered by advanced healing entities who understand the soul's complete history and needs. Educational realms described by Cayce function as universities of spiritual wisdom, where souls study universal laws, explore their life purposes, and receive guidance about future paths. Souls in coma might attend lectures by ascended masters, participate in group discussions with other evolving souls, or receive individual mentoring about their spiritual development. This education often focuses on lessons related to their current life challenges, helping them gain perspective and wisdom that will benefit their earthly existence. Communication centers in these spiritual realms allow souls to connect with loved ones both living and deceased, facilitating healing for relationships and families. Souls in coma often serve as intermediaries, helping resolve conflicts, conveying messages of love and forgiveness, and providing comfort to grieving relatives through dreams and intuitive impressions. These communications frequently result in remarkable healing and reconciliation within families, even when the coma patient appears completely unresponsive physically. The richness of these spiritual experiences provides crucial context for understanding why some souls choose to remain in coma states for extended periods. Rather than being trapped or lost, they may be engaged in profound work that requires time and deep focus. This perspective shifts our understanding from viewing coma as merely medical crisis to recognizing potential spiritual opportunity, opening our awareness to the meaningful activities that may be unfolding beyond physical perception. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, coma experiences serve multiple spiritual purposes that extend beyond individual healing to encompass family dynamics, karmic resolution, and collective spiritual growth. Many souls choose coma states as opportunities to complete unfinished spiritual business, heal generational patterns, or provide profound learning experiences for their loved ones. These experiences often catalyze spiritual awakening in family members, teaching lessons about unconditional love, patience, faith, and the eternal nature of consciousness that transcend physical limitations. Cayce described how souls in coma frequently work to balance karmic debts and resolve past life conflicts that have created current life challenges. The spiritual freedom experienced during coma allows souls to directly address these issues with other souls involved, facilitating healing and forgiveness that might take lifetimes to accomplish through normal physical interaction. This karmic work often explains the timing and circumstances surrounding coma experiences, revealing deeper spiritual purposes behind apparent medical crises. The readings revealed that some souls use coma states as preparation periods for major life transitions, whether returning to physical life with renewed purpose or preparing for transition to spiritual realms. During these preparation phases, souls review their life experiences, integrate lessons learned, and receive guidance about optimal timing for their next phase. This spiritual preparation ensures that whatever choice they make serves their highest good and contributes to the spiritual evolution of all involved. Family members and caregivers often report profound spiritual experiences while caring for coma patients, including enhanced intuition, meaningful dreams, and sensing the patient's spiritual presence. These experiences reflect the coma patient's continued spiritual activity and their efforts to maintain connection with loved ones. Cayce's readings suggest that these communications provide comfort, guidance, and healing for families while serving the spiritual growth of all participants in these sacred experiences. Understanding these deeper purposes transforms our relationship with coma states from fear and helplessness to reverence and spiritual opportunity. This shift in perspective opens us to receiving the gifts and lessons that these experiences offer, while also preparing us to explore how we can best support souls during these profound spiritual journeys through prayer, meditation, and conscious communication efforts. Edgar Cayce's readings emphasize that souls in coma remain fully conscious and capable of communication even when their physical bodies appear unresponsive. The sleeping prophet recommended talking to coma patients naturally, reading to them, playing meaningful music, and maintaining loving physical contact because their souls perceive and benefit from these interactions. According to his insights, the spiritual awareness of coma patients often becomes heightened rather than diminished, allowing them to sense emotions, intentions, and spiritual energies of those around them with remarkable clarity. The most effective communication methods described by Cayce involve heart-centered approaches rather than purely verbal communication. Sending loving thoughts, practicing meditation in their presence, and engaging in prayer creates energetic bridges that souls in coma can easily perceive and respond to through various means. Many families report receiving responses through dreams, synchronicities, changes in the patient's vital signs, or subtle physical movements that seem to correspond with specific communications or visits from particular people. Cayce's readings provided specific guidance for establishing communication with souls in coma through meditation and dream states. He recommended family members quiet their minds, send loving thoughts, and remain open to receiving impressions, images, or emotional communications from their loved one's soul. These communications often provide insights into the patient's spiritual condition, their needs, and sometimes information about their likely recovery or transition plans that can guide family decisions and healing approaches. Musical therapy emerged as particularly powerful in Cayce's recommendations, with specific types of music serving as bridges between dimensions. Classical music, especially pieces with spiritual themes, hymns, and personally meaningful songs, can reach souls in coma and provide comfort, healing, and communication opportunities. The readings suggested that music creates vibrational pathways that transcend physical limitations, allowing direct soul-to-soul connection that bypasses normal communication barriers imposed by the coma state. However, Cayce also cautioned that negative emotions, conflicts, and chaotic environments could disturb souls in coma and potentially interfere with their spiritual work. He emphasized maintaining peaceful, loving atmospheres around coma patients and resolving family conflicts away from their presence. This awareness of the soul's continued sensitivity and spiritual activity provides foundation for understanding the healing approaches and supportive practices that can most effectively assist souls during their coma journeys. Edgar Cayce's readings provided comprehensive healing approaches for supporting souls in coma states that address physical, mental, and spiritual dimensions simultaneously. His holistic methodology recognized that effective healing must reach the soul level, where the primary spiritual work is occurring, while also supporting the physical body's maintenance and potential recovery. These approaches combine traditional medical care with spiritual practices, energy healing, and environmental modifications designed to support both physical stability and spiritual progression. Physical healing recommendations from Cayce included specific dietary support for coma patients, emphasizing easily digestible nutrients that maintain body functions without taxing the system. He often recommended particular vitamins, minerals, and herbal preparations that support nervous system function and cellular regeneration. Massage therapy, especially gentle techniques focusing on circulation and energy flow, appeared frequently in his readings as methods for maintaining physical connection between soul and body while supporting overall health maintenance. Energy healing. Practices featured prominently in Cayce's recommendations for supporting coma patients, including hands-on healing, prayer circles, and meditation sessions conducted in their presence. He described how healing energy transmitted through loving touch, focused intention, and spiritual prayer could reach souls in coma and provide strength for their spiritual work while encouraging physical healing. These energy practices often produced measurable improvements in vital signs, brain activity, and overall physical condition, even when traditional medical interventions showed limited effectiveness. Environmental healing factors recommended by Cayce included specific colors, lighting, and room arrangements that create supportive, energetic conditions for both spiritual work and physical recovery. He often suggested surrounding coma patients with particular colors that correspond to their healing needs, using natural lighting when possible, and maintaining clean, peaceful environments free from negative influences. Plants, crystals, and sacred objects might also serve as energy amplifiers that support the healing process on multiple levels. Cayce's readings acknowledged that healing outcomes vary significantly based on the soul's spiritual agenda and karmic patterns, emphasizing that true healing serves the soul's highest good rather than simply returning to previous physical conditions. Some souls might experience complete physical recovery with enhanced spiritual awareness, while others might transition peacefully to spiritual realms after completing their coma work. This understanding helps families approach healing with surrender and trust, supporting whatever outcome serves their loved one's spiritual evolution while maintaining hope and active participation in healing efforts. The remarkable similarities between Edgar Cayce's descriptions of coma experiences and modern near-death experience research provide compelling validation for his insights about Consciousness during altered states. Near-death experiences frequently describe traveling to healing temples, meeting spiritual guides, attending educational sessions, and communicating with deceased loved ones, precisely the activities Cayce described souls in coma experiencing. These parallels suggest that both phenomena involve similar spiritual dimensions and consciousness expansion processes, with coma representing an extended version of the brief spiritual journeys reported in near-death experiences. Dr. Raymond Moody's groundbreaking research on near-death experiences, along with subsequent studies by researchers like Dr. Kenneth Ring and Dr. Pim van Lommel, documented thousands of cases where individuals experienced vivid consciousness during clinical death or deep coma states. Their findings consistently align with Cayce's earlier descriptions of soul travel, spiritual healing centers, life reviews, and communications with spiritual beings. This scientific validation lends credibility to Cayce's claims about the rich spiritual activities occurring during apparent unconsciousness. Both Cayce's readings and near-death research emphasize the transformative nature of these experiences, describing how souls return with enhanced spiritual awareness, reduced fear of death, and deeper understanding of life's purpose. Near-death experiencers often report receiving specific information about their life missions, healing instructions, or messages for family members, similar to the spiritual education and communication activities Cayce described for souls in coma. These transformative elements suggest that both experiences serve important evolutionary purposes for consciousness development. The healing aspects documented in near-death research also mirror Cayce's descriptions of spiritual healing temples and therapeutic activities during coma states. Many near-death experiencers report instantaneous healing of physical ailments, emotional traumas, and spiritual wounds during their brief sojourns in spiritual realms. This healing potential provides hope for understanding how extended coma experiences might facilitate even more comprehensive healing and spiritual development, given the additional time available for these transformative processes. Contemporary consciousness research increasingly supports the possibility that awareness can exist independently of brain function, challenging materialist assumptions about consciousness being produced solely by neural activity. Studies of terminal lucidity, shared death experiences, and verified perceptions during clinical death provide growing scientific evidence that consciousness operates beyond physical brain limitations. This research foundation strengthens confidence in Cayce's descriptions of conscious spiritual activities during coma states, bridging ancient wisdom with modern scientific inquiry. Edgar Cayce's readings extensively described the crucial role of spirit guides, guardian, angels, and deceased loved ones in assisting souls during coma experiences. According to his insights, no soul enters coma states alone or without spiritual support. Rather, these experiences are carefully orchestrated by teams of spiritual helpers who guide, protect, and educate souls throughout their journey. These guides serve as teachers, healers, and companions, ensuring that each soul receives appropriate assistance for their specific spiritual needs and evolutionary goals. The Cayce material identified different categories of spiritual helpers who specialize in various aspects of coma assistance. Some guides focus primarily on healing work, helping souls release karmic patterns and receive energetic restoration in spiritual healing centers. Educational guides specialize in teaching universal laws and life lessons, while communication specialists help souls maintain connection with earthly loved ones and facilitate important messages. Guardian entities provide protection during soul travel, ensuring safe navigation through different dimensional realms. Deceased family members and friends often serve as primary guides for souls in coma, providing familiar, loving presence during what might otherwise be overwhelming spiritual experiences. Cayce described how these beloved guides help orient souls to spiritual realms, introduce them to other helpers, and provide emotional support during challenging healing processes. Their presence offers comfort and continuity, bridging the gap between earthly existence and spiritual reality, while facilitating trust in the overall process. Advanced spiritual beings, including what Cayce termed masters and teachers, work with souls in coma to provide higher-level instruction and healing that serves their long-term spiritual evolution. These beings possess comprehensive understanding of universal laws, karmic patterns, and soul development processes, enabling them to provide precisely the guidance and healing each soul needs. Their wisdom helps souls make important decisions about their spiritual journey and earthly existence with full awareness of consequences and opportunities. The collaborative nature of spiritual assistance during coma states reflects the interconnected reality of all consciousness and the loving support available to every soul during times of spiritual transition and growth. Understanding this spiritual support system can provide tremendous comfort to families, knowing they're loved. Ones are receiving expert guidance and care from the most qualified helpers available. This awareness also opens opportunities for family members to connect with these guides through prayer and meditation, participating in the support network surrounding their loved one's spiritual journey. Edgar Cayce's readings revealed that coma states often provide optimal opportunities for souls to address karmic patterns and resolve past life conflicts that have created current life challenges. The spiritual freedom experienced during coma allows souls to directly encounter other souls involved in karmic relationships, facilitating healing and forgiveness processes that might require multiple lifetimes to accomplish through normal physical interaction. These karmic resolution sessions occur in specialized spiritual environments where souls can communicate clearly without the limitations and defenses typically present in physical relationships. The Sleeping Prophet described how souls in coma frequently participate in group healing sessions with other souls from their karmic family, including individuals from past lives who may or may not be currently incarnated. These gatherings allow for comprehensive resolution of complex relationship patterns, ancestral traumas, and collective karma that affects multiple generations. The healing achieved during these sessions often produces profound changes in family dynamics, even when the coma patient appears unconscious, as karmic. Patterns that have created conflict and suffering are dissolved at the spiritual level. Cayce's readings provided specific examples of how karmic healing during coma manifests in practical life changes. Families might experience unexpected reconciliation of long-standing conflicts, resolution of inherited behavioral patterns, or healing of genetic health issues that reflect karmic influences. These changes often begin during the coma period and continue unfolding after the patient either awakens or transitions, demonstrating the lasting impact of spiritual healing work accomplished during altered consciousness states. Past life therapeutic work during coma often involves souls revisiting traumatic experiences from previous incarnations to heal wounds that continue affecting current life circumstances. Cayce described how souls receive spiritual counseling and healing assistance to transform past life traumas into wisdom and strength. This process frequently explains why certain individuals experience comas following accidents or illnesses that mirror past life death experiences, providing opportunities to heal ancient wounds and release limiting patterns. The comprehensive nature of karmic healing during coma states often requires significant time and spiritual energy, explaining why some souls remain in extended comas while completing this important work. Families who understand this perspective often report feeling guided to maintain life support longer than might seem medically reasonable, sensing intuitively that important spiritual work is still occurring. This karmic healing dimension adds profound meaning to coma experiences, transforming apparent tragedy into opportunities for multi-generational healing and spiritual evolution. Edgar Cayce's readings describe numerous subtle signs that indicate active spiritual work occurring in souls experiencing coma states, even when medical equipment shows minimal brain activity or physical responsiveness. These signs include changes in facial expression that suggest inner experiences, variations in breathing patterns that correspond to spiritual activities, and fluctuations in body temperature that reflect energetic shifts occurring during soul travel. Family members who maintain close connection with coma patients often develop sensitivity to these subtle indicators of ongoing spiritual consciousness. The Cayce material emphasized that souls in coma frequently attempt to communicate their spiritual experiences through whatever physical means remain available to them. Slight movements of fingers, changes in heart rate during specific conversations or music, and tears appearing during meaningful interactions all potentially represent efforts by the soul to indicate its continued awareness and participation in earthly relationships. These responses often occur in patterns that suggest intelligent communication rather than random physical reflexes. Dreams, experienced by family members and caregivers, often serve as communication channels for souls in coma, according to Cayce's insights. These dreams frequently feature the coma patient appearing healthy and communicating important messages about their condition, their spiritual work, or their needs. The accuracy and relevance of information received through these dreams often astound families, providing evidence that genuine communication is occurring between the soul in coma and their loved ones. Through spiritual channels, synchronicities and meaningful coincidences often increase dramatically around coma patients, reflecting the heightened spiritual activity and dimensional bridging occurring through their experience. Cayce described how souls in coma often orchestrate signs and symbols to communicate with family members, including unusual behavior in pets, meaningful mechanical malfunctions, and timely appearances of significant objects or people. These synchronicities frequently provide guidance, comfort, and confirmation of the soul's continued presence and activity. Environmental changes in the presence of coma patients can also indicate spiritual activity, including unusual electromagnetic phenomena affecting electronic equipment, temperature variations in specific areas of the room, and enhanced plant growth or animal behavior. Cayce's readings suggested that the intensive spiritual work occurring during coma creates energetic fields that influence the surrounding environment. Recognizing these signs helps families maintain connection with their loved one's spiritual journey and provides reassurance that meaningful activities continue despite physical appearances. Edgar Cayce's readings described how souls in extended coma states eventually reach critical decision points, where they must choose whether to return to physical life or transition permanently to spiritual realms. These decisions are not made impulsively, but result from careful consideration of multiple factors, including the completion of spiritual work undertaken during coma, the soul's overall life mission and learning objectives, and the needs of family members and other souls connected to their journey. The decision-making process often involves extensive consultation with spiritual guides and review of potential outcomes. The sleeping prophet explained that souls choosing to return to physical life typically do so because they have unfinished earthly purposes to fulfill, relationships to heal, or specific contributions to make that require physical embodiment. These returning souls often awaken with enhanced spiritual awareness, psychic abilities, and profound understanding of life's deeper meanings that serve their continued mission. Their recovery process frequently involves integrating spiritual experiences gained during coma with their earthly personality and life circumstances. Souls choosing to transition to spiritual realms have usually completed their earthly purposes or determined that their continued spiritual evolution can better occur in non-physical dimensions. Cayce described these transitions as peaceful, joyful processes where the soul releases its connection to the physical body after ensuring that family members receive necessary healing, messages, and spiritual preparation for the separation. These transitions often occur with remarkable timing that suggests conscious choice rather than medical inevitability. Family dynamics and emotional attachment significantly influence these spiritual decisions, according to Cayce's insights. Souls deeply concerned about family members might delay transition to provide additional healing, guidance, or gradual preparation for separation. Conversely, families who demonstrate spiritual understanding and release their loved one to make optimal choices often experience clearer communication and more peaceful outcomes, regardless of whether recovery or transition occurs. The timing of these decisions often correlates with external factors such as family readiness, completion of legal or practical affairs, and seasonal or anniversary dates that hold special significance. Cayce emphasized that these timing considerations reflect the soul's continued care for earthly relationships and responsibilities, demonstrating that spiritual decisions always consider the highest good of all involved parties. This understanding helps families recognize signs that important decisions are being contemplated and prepare themselves spiritually for either outcome. When souls choose to return from extended coma states, Edgar Cayce's readings describe the recovery process as involving complex integration of spiritual experiences with earthly consciousness and physical body functions. This integration period often requires patience and understanding from both the recovering individual and their family members, as the soul must readjust to physical limitations after experiencing spiritual freedom and expanded awareness. The returning consciousness frequently retains vivid memories of spiritual activities, guide communications, and healing experiences that can initially seem more real than earthly reality. Cayce observed that individuals recovering from significant coma experiences often demonstrate enhanced psychic abilities, deeper spiritual understanding, and altered priorities that reflect their soul-level learning during the unconscious period. These changes might include increased sensitivity to spiritual energy, ability to communicate with guides or deceased loved ones, prophetic dreams, and intuitive healing abilities that serve both their personal development and potential service to others. The integration of these expanded capacities requires careful nurturing and spiritual guidance. Physical recovery following coma often proceeds differently than medical professionals might expect, according to Cayce's insights, because the soul has been actively engaged in spiritual healing work that addresses root causes of health challenges. Some individuals experience remarkable healing of conditions that caused their coma, while others might recover with different health patterns that better serve their renewed spiritual purposes. The soul's spiritual work during coma can accelerate healing processes in unexpected ways. Emotional and psychological integration challenges frequently arise as recovering individuals attempt to communicate their spiritual experiences to family members who may not understand or believe their accounts. Cayce recommended that families approach these sharing sessions with open hearts and minds, recognizing that their loved one has undergone profound spiritual experiences that have transformed their consciousness. Creating supportive environments for processing and integrating these experiences helps ensure that the spiritual gains achieved during coma benefit the individual's ongoing earthly life. The long-term impacts of coma spiritual experiences often continue unfolding for years following recovery, as the individual gradually understands and applies the wisdom, healing, and guidance received during their spiritual journey. These ongoing revelations might influence career changes, relationship healing, creative expression, and spiritual service that reflects the soul's enhanced understanding of their earthly mission. Supporting this continued integration helps maximize the spiritual benefits gained through the coma experience. Edgar Cayce's readings emphasize that coma experiences serve not only the spiritual development of the unconscious individual, but also provide profound learning opportunities for family members and caregivers who participate in these sacred journeys. The challenges, uncertainties, and spiritual openings that families experience during coma situations often catalyze significant spiritual growth, teaching lessons about unconditional love, surrender, faith, and the eternal nature of consciousness that might not be learned through other life experiences. The Sleeping Prophet recommended that families approach coma situations as spiritual opportunities rather than merely medical crises, maintaining hope and positive energy while simultaneously surrendering outcomes to divine will. This balanced approach involves actively participating in healing efforts through prayer, meditation, communication, and loving care, while releasing attachment to specific outcomes and trusting that whatever unfolds serves the highest good of all involved. This spiritual perspective transforms family stress into opportunities for spiritual development and deeper relationships. Practical support strategies based on Cayce's insights, include establishing regular prayer or meditation schedules in the patient's presence, creating peaceful environments that support spiritual work, maintaining natural conversation and physical contact, and documenting any signs or communications that might provide guidance or comfort. These practices help families feel actively involved in their loved one's journey while creating optimal conditions for healing and spiritual communication. Cayce stressed the importance of family members maintaining their own physical and emotional health during extended coma situations, recognizing that their well-being directly affects the spiritual environment surrounding the patient. Taking breaks, seeking support from spiritual communities, and engaging in personal healing practices ensures that families can provide sustained, loving energy throughout the journey. Self-care becomes a spiritual practice that serves the entire family system during these challenging periods. The grief and uncertainty inherent in coma situations often open family members to spiritual experiences, enhanced intuition, and deeper connection with spiritual guides and deceased loved ones who assist during these times. Cayce encouraged families to remain open to these spiritual communications and experiences, which often provide guidance, comfort, and reassurance that their loved one is receiving optimal spiritual care. These spiritual openings frequently become lasting sources of comfort and spiritual development for family members. Edgar Cayce's profound insights about souls in coma states reveal the magnificent spiritual realities that operate beyond our physical perception, transforming our understanding of consciousness from materialistic limitations to expansive spiritual truth. His revelations demonstrate that what appears as unconsciousness to medical observation may actually represent heightened spiritual activity, purposeful soul work, and profound healing opportunities that serve both individual evolution and collective spiritual growth. These insights from the Association for Research and Enlightenment Archives continue providing comfort and understanding to families navigating these mysterious experiences. The Sleeping Prophet's descriptions of spiritual healing temples, educational realms, and communication centers accessible to souls in coma offer hope and meaning during humanity's most challenging medical situations. Rather than viewing coma as tragic loss of consciousness, we can recognize these states as potential spiritual opportunities where souls engage in accelerated learning, karmic healing, and service activities that might require lifetimes to accomplish through normal physical existence. Modern consciousness research, near-death experience studies, and thousands of family testimonials continue validating Cayce's revolutionary insights about consciousness operating independently of brain function. This growing evidence base supports the reality of spiritual dimensions, soul survival, and the profound purposes served by altered consciousness states. These validations encourage us to approach coma situations with reverence, spiritual openness, and trust in the soul's wisdom. Understanding coma as spiritual opportunity transforms our approach to these experiences, encouraging families to participate actively through prayer, meditation, communication, and loving support, while surrendering outcomes to divine wisdom. This balanced approach honors both human love and spiritual truth, creating optimal conditions for whatever healing, learning, or transition serves the soul's highest evolution and the family's spiritual development. The sacred mystery of consciousness continues revealing itself through experiences that challenge our limited physical perceptions and invite us into deeper spiritual understanding. Edgar Cayce's legacy reminds us that consciousness is eternal, purposeful, and magnificently creative, operating through dimensions of reality that exceed our current comprehension. May his insights about souls in coma inspire continued spiritual exploration, compassionate care, and trust in the infinite wisdom guiding every soul's journey through all dimensions of existence. What if the real message of Jesus was not only about worship, but about awakening something already inside you, your higher self, your connection to the Christ consciousness? And if I told you that Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, left behind readings that pointed to this truth hidden in plain sight, Would you be ready to look at your own life differently? Before we go deeper, I want you to leave your answer in the comments. Do you believe the higher self is a part of God within you, or just a product of the human mind? Your answer might surprise you when we compare it to what Cayce revealed. This question is not a trick. It's an invitation to reflect, because what you're about to hear challenges both tradition and science. And if this sparks something in you, take a second to subscribe, like this video, and share it. Every interaction helps expand this conversation, and I promise to read and heart every single comment. During the dark years of the Great Depression, people would travel from distant towns to Virginia Beach, often arriving with nothing but despair. Imagine a family who had lost everything, standing in front of Cayce, hoping for answers. What they heard was not only about healing their bodies, but about awakening a part of themselves they had forgotten, the Christ consciousness. Cayce explained that Jesus was not a distant figure to be worshipped blindly, but the living demonstration of what every soul could become when aligned with its higher self. This idea was shocking, even controversial, because it meant that divine connection was not reserved for a chosen few, but was accessible to all. And in one of his most impactful readings from 1932, Cayce emphasized that Christ lived within every heart, waiting to be recognized. But here's the part that nobody expected. Cayce's trance readings linked this awareness directly to transformation, not only spiritual, but also physical and emotional. He described that disease, despair, and even poverty often came from separation from this inner source. When a person rediscovered unity with their higher self, healing could begin, not as magic, but as alignment. For example, during a session that changed a woman's entire life, Cayce didn't just prescribe remedies. He told her that unless she recognized her divine nature, the remedies alone would fail. This statement shook the room. Imagine hearing that your deepest healing was not in the medicine, but in awakening the Christ within you. It was a radical message, and yet, for those who lived it, it worked in ways they couldn't explain. So why does this matter to you today? Because in modern times, people chase solutions outside themselves, pills, possessions, positions, forgetting the inner truth Cayce spoke of. He warned that if humanity ignored the higher self, the world would repeat cycles of suffering. And looking back at the decades since, we can see wars, crises, and confusion proving his point. Yet he also left hope that by embracing the Christ consciousness, individuals could shift not only their lives, but the collective direction of humanity. It wasn't about abandoning faith, but about embodying it. And this is the forgotten truth, that Jesus didn't come to show us what only he could do, but to reveal what we all could awaken. When Cayce spoke of the Christ consciousness, he didn't describe it as something abstract or unreachable. He presented it as a living energy available to everyone, regardless of their religion or background. In fact, he often said that the Christ spirit was not confined to one tradition, but represented the universal pattern of oneness with God. During one reading, he explained that Jesus became the elder brother, the one who demonstrated what it looks like when the human self fully aligns with the higher self. This wasn't a call to worship from a distance, but an invitation to follow the same path. Imagine hearing that in the 1930s, a time when religious traditions were rigid and unquestioned. It was revolutionary. Yet people who applied this teaching found themselves more resilient, more peaceful, and in some cases more healed than they had ever been. Think about the power of that idea in your own life. How would it change you if you believed that every prayer was not a plea to a distant God, but a direct activation of divine energy within you? Cayce repeatedly emphasized that thoughts are things, carrying vibration, shaping both body and circumstance. And when those thoughts are aligned with the Christ consciousness, their power multiplies. One man, struggling with hopelessness during the war years, came to Cayce for guidance. In trance, Cayce told him to start each day by affirming, "Let me be a channel of the Christ." The man later reported that his despair lifted, opportunities opened, and even his health improved. This wasn't superstition, it was the lived evidence that consciousness, when directed toward the higher self, transforms reality. And here's the mystery Cayce often returned to. The higher self isn't separate from you. It is you. the eternal part of your soul that never dies, never fades, and always remembers its unity with God. Jesus, according to Cayce, fully lived from that awareness. That's why his presence healed, why his words carried weight, and why his resurrection was not a miracle to worship, but a demonstration of what lies within all of us. The forgotten truth is this: Christ was both the promise and the proof. In one unforgettable reading, Cayce said that to find the Christ was to awaken the sleeping portion of your own being. Can you see how this challenges the way we've been taught to view spirituality? It shifts the focus from external devotion to inner realization. This is why so many of Cayce's followers described his sessions as life-changing. People didn't just receive medical or personal advice, they received a map back to their souls. During the Great Depression, this message was like a light in the darkness. Families who had lost hope discovered that even in poverty, they could live richly by recognizing their inner divinity. Soldiers returning from war were told to rebuild not just their homes, but their connection to the higher self. Mothers overwhelmed by grief were reminded that the Christ within them was greater than the pain they carried. In every context, the teaching was the same: align with the Christ consciousness, and you will awaken strength, peace, and healing beyond measure. Cayce often warned that humanity's greatest danger was forgetting this inner connection. He explained that when people live only from the lower self, the ego driven by fear, greed, and separation, they create suffering not only for themselves, but for the entire world. Wars, divisions, and even illnesses were described as reflections of this forgetfulness. Yet he always balanced these warnings with hope, showing that the Christ consciousness was not lost, only waiting to be awakened. One of his most striking statements came when he said that every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, and every prayer of gratitude was evidence of the Christ already alive in us. This meant that you didn't need to wait for a mystical vision or a dramatic revelation. You only needed to choose day by day to live from that higher state. What makes this message so relevant today is how practical it is. In an age where people feel pulled apart by stress, technology, and division, Cayce's guidance points us back to something simple: the alignment of thought, emotion, and action with the Christ within. Imagine starting your day with a single decision. Instead of reacting with anger, you choose compassion. Instead of fear, you choose trust. According to Cayce, these choices are not small. They ripple through your body, your relationships, and even the collective consciousness of humanity. During one session in Virginia Beach, he reminded a seeker that the Christ consciousness was the pattern for the world, and that each soul contributes to whether that pattern is realized or ignored. It was a powerful call to responsibility, showing that the transformation of the planet begins in the quiet transformation of the self. And here is the part that still shocks many. Cayce linked the Christ consciousness directly with healing and renewal of the body. He often said that when the mind and spirit were aligned with the divine, the cells of the body responded. He described the human body as a temple designed to express God, and when the higher self was in command, even the physical form could reflect that harmony. There are documented cases where individuals who had been given little hope experienced improvement after applying not only physical remedies, but also spiritual alignment. Cayce did not dismiss medicine, but he insisted that without the awakening of the Christ within, medicine alone would never be enough. This wasn't faith healing in the sensational sense. It was the deeper truth that the soul's awareness shapes the body's response. But what about those who doubted? Cayce welcomed their skepticism because he never asked people to accept blindly. He urged them to test the truth in their own lives. One of his common instructions was simple: live the teachings of Jesus, love your neighbor, forgive, serve, and pray from the heart, and then watch what happens. Many who followed this advice returned with stories of unexplainable peace, restored relationships, or health breakthroughs they hadn't thought possible. The evidence wasn't in debate, but in experience. And this is where Cayce's forgotten truth still matters most today. It doesn't depend on dogma or persuasion. It depends on you stepping into your higher self and proving in your own life that Christ lives within. During the war years, when fear and uncertainty spread across the United States, many turned to Edgar Cayce not just for medical advice, but for strength of spirit. He told families with sons in battle that their prayers carried more weight than they realized. He explained that when they prayed not in desperation, but in alignment with the Christ within, they were creating channels of light and protection that reached far beyond what human eyes could see. This was not about controlling outcomes, but about attuning the soul to a higher order, trusting that God's will could work through them. Some of those families later testified that even in the worst chaos, they felt an inner peace that was unshakable. For Cayce, this was the living evidence of Christ consciousness, the ability to face life's storms without being broken by them. Cayce also made it clear that Christ consciousness was not limited to Christianity. He reminded seekers that souls incarnated across cultures and ages, each carrying fragments of divine truth. Jesus, in his view, represented the fullest expression of that truth, but every religion held seeds of it. What mattered was not the label, but the awakening of the higher self. In one session, he explained that the Christ pattern is universal, the bridge between humanity and the divine, accessible to all who seek. This perspective was radical for its time, especially in a society where rigid dogmas often separated people. Yet for many who heard it, it was liberating. It meant that divine love was not confined to walls of tradition, but flowed through the entire human family. Imagine how healing that message must have felt for those who felt excluded or unworthy. But Cayce also cautioned, awakening the Christ within was not a one-time experience, but a daily practice. He emphasized prayer, meditation, service to others, and above all, forgiveness. He often said that forgiveness was the quickest way to align with the higher self, because resentment tied the soul to the lower self. One man, filled with bitterness toward a business partner who had betrayed him, came for a reading. Cayce told him plainly that unless he forgave, his health would continue to deteriorate. It was not punishment from God, but the natural consequence of living in discord. When the man finally forgave, his health improved. Stories like this show how Cayce tied the most mystical truths to the most practical acts. It wasn't about grand rituals, but about living the love of Christ in ordinary choices. And this is where the forgotten truth of Cayce becomes urgent for us now. In a world filled with division, anger, and fear, the higher self is still waiting to be recognized. The Christ consciousness is not a mystical escape from reality, but the power to transform reality. It asks us to see beyond appearances, beyond the labels that divide us, and to recognize the divine in one another. It calls us to heal not only our own wounds, but also the collective wounds of humanity. Cayce's message is clear. If we live from the higher self, if we embody Christ consciousness, the world can change. But if we ignore it, we repeat the cycles of suffering. The choice is ours, and it begins within. So let me ask you again, do you believe the higher self is a part of God within you, or just a product of the mind? Share your answer, because your reflection may help someone else awaken to this truth. Cayce often described the higher self as the part of us that already remembers. While our conscious mind struggles with doubt and fear, the higher self is never confused. It knows the path, it knows the purpose, and it knows that we are never truly separate from God. In one of his most moving sessions, he explained that Jesus himself lived fully from this memory, never forgetting his oneness with the Creator. That was the difference, not that he was chosen while others were rejected, but that he remembered fully while most of us remember only in fragments. Cayce urged people to practice remembering through meditation, prayer, acts of service, and constant alignment of thought with divine ideals. He explained that every time you choose love instead of hate, faith instead of fear, forgiveness instead of resentment, you step closer to the Christ pattern. This teaching was not abstract philosophy for Cayce, it was survival. During the Great Depression, when hopelessness was everywhere, he told seekers that aligning with the higher self would open doors where none seemed possible. Families who practiced daily prayer and service, even with little material wealth, often reported new opportunities, restored relationships, or unexplained resilience. Cayce's followers began to see that the Christ consciousness wasn't just a lofty idea, but a practical force shaping everyday life. In Virginia Beach, groups formed around his teachings where people meditated together, studied scripture, and supported each other. They weren't waiting for miracles. They were living them. This collective practice created a ripple effect, a small demonstration of what Cayce believed humanity could achieve on a larger scale if enough people awakened to the Christ within. Yet Cayce never promised an easy path. He acknowledged that aligning with the higher self requires struggle, discipline, and surrender. The lower self resists. It clings to fear, pride, and control. But Cayce reminded seekers that Jesus himself faced temptations and trials, and that overcoming them was part of the journey. He often told people that their struggles were not punishments, but opportunities to remember who they really were. One seeker, overwhelmed with loss after the death of a loved one, asked how she could go on. Cayce told her that the grief was real, but that within her soul lived a part that could never be broken. By connecting with the Christ within, she would not erase her pain, but she would find strength beyond it. For many, this reframing turned suffering into a doorway to deeper awareness. Today, when so many people feel lost in anxiety, division, or emptiness, Cayce's words carry even greater weight. The forgotten truth he left us is that Christ is not a distant figure in history, but a living presence inside us, waiting to be recognized. This doesn't diminish Jesus. It fulfills his message. By awakening the higher self, we don't worship him from afar. We follow his example, step by step. Imagine what would happen if millions of people began to live this truth, not just talking about love, but living it. Not just believing in God, but remembering their oneness with him. Cayce believed this shift could change the destiny of humanity itself. And so the question remains, will you choose to awaken your higher self, or will you let it sleep while the world repeats its old cycles? The choice is in your hands right now. Cayce's vision of Christ consciousness was not meant to create another religion or to divide humanity further. It was meant to unite. He explained that when Jesus walked the earth, he embodied the pattern of the higher self perfectly. But that same light rests in every soul. This was the forgotten truth, that divinity was not locked away in ancient scriptures, but breathing within every man, woman, and child alive today. He urged seekers to stop asking only what would Jesus do, and begin asking, how can I live as Jesus lived, aligned with God in every thought and action? That shift in perspective transforms worship into participation, turning passive belief into active embodiment. It means the presence of Christ doesn't end in history. It continues wherever a human being chooses to awaken love, forgiveness, and service. In one particularly moving session, Cayce told a group that the Christ within is like a lamp hidden under a bushel. The light is already there, but unless you uncover it, no one can see it, not even yourself. He warned that fear, pride, and selfishness cover that light, but prayer, forgiveness, and service uncover it. This was not poetry for him, it was spiritual law. Just as gravity pulls objects down, the Christ within pulls the soul upward, if only we let it. And Cayce insisted that each act of compassion is not small, but cosmic in scope. A word of encouragement given to a stranger, a moment of forgiveness, a choice to pray for another. These ripple outward through the collective consciousness of humanity. Imagine if millions began to live like this. The world itself would begin to heal. And perhaps this is the most urgent part of his forgotten truth. Cayce foresaw that humanity would face times of great upheaval, wars, disasters, crises of faith. He said that during such times, the difference between collapse and renewal would be whether enough people remembered the Christ within. He wasn't pointing to some distant savior who would arrive and fix everything. He was pointing to us, to you and me, calling us to awaken. For Cayce, salvation was not escape, it was responsibility. To embody Christ consciousness was to take your place in God's plan for healing the world. And he believed that even one person living fully from that awareness could influence countless others, sparking change in ways invisible but undeniable. So here is where we stand today, almost a century after Cayce's most powerful readings. The world is once again in turmoil, people are hungry for hope, and division runs deep. And yet, the same truth remains. Christ is not far away. He is alive in your higher self, waiting for you to remember. The question is, will you uncover that light? Will you choose forgiveness instead of resentment, faith instead of fear, compassion instead of indifference? Because each of those choices is not only about you, it's about the world you help create. And if this message has spoken to your heart, let's keep this conversation alive. Like this video, share it and subscribe, because together we can spread this forgotten truth. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, how will you begin to live from your higher self today? I'll be reading and giving a heart to every comment, because your voice matters in this awakening. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, delivered over 14,000 psychic readings during his lifetime. But his revelations about the afterlife remain among his most profound and transformative teachings. Unlike traditional religious interpretations, Cayce's insights about heaven and hell came through direct spiritual communication while in deep trance states. These weren't philosophical theories or religious doctrine, but detailed descriptions of what awaits human consciousness beyond physical death. His readings, carefully documented by the Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, present a radically different understanding of our eternal destiny. Experiences we create through our own spiritual development and choices. This understanding has profound implications for how we live our daily lives, treat others, and prepare for our inevitable transition. The weight of personal responsibility becomes both liberating and sobering when viewed through Cayce's spiritual lens. Post-mortem experiences. We'll examine his detailed descriptions of different spiritual planes, the role of karma in shaping our afterlife journey, and how consciousness itself creates our reality beyond death. These aren't abstract concepts, but practical insights that can transform how you approach every decision, relationship, and spiritual practice in your current life. Afterlife teachings form a coherent system that bridges ancient wisdom with modern understanding. His insights don't contradict genuine spiritual seeking, but rather illuminate the deeper mechanics of soul evolution and cosmic justice. Unlike channeled material that often lacks specificity, Cayce's readings provide detailed maps of consciousness that have been verified by thousands of near-death experiencers and spiritual seekers worldwide. Of Cayce's heaven and hell revelations, we must first understand the unique source of his information and why his trance readings have maintained their credibility for over a century. The foundation of his teachings rests on a remarkable ability that allowed him to access what he called the Akashic Records, a cosmic library of all soul experiences, bypassed normal conscious limitations. During these sessions, documented between 1901 and 1944, Cayce would lie on a couch, enter a deep sleep-like state, and respond to questions with detailed information he claimed to access from the Akashic Records. These records, according to Cayce, contain the complete history of every soul's journey through multiple incarnations and spiritual planes. The Association for Research and Enlightenment has preserved these readings exactly as they were recorded, maintaining their authenticity for serious spiritual researchers. Patterns. Unlike religious dogma that often relies on faith alone, Cayce's readings provided specific mechanisms for how souls transition, what they experience, and how their earthly actions influence their spiritual journey. The structure of non-physical realms and the processes that determine post-mortem experiences. This wasn't channeling external entities, but rather accessing the fundamental patterns of spiritual reality that govern all consciousness. His readings consistently emphasized that these same universal principles operate whether we understand them or not. Detail and practical application. His descriptions of spiritual planes correspond to Tibetan bardos, Hindu lokas, and Kabbalistic sephirot, yet provide specific guidance for soul preparation and evolution. Modern near-death experience research has validated many of his claims about consciousness surviving bodily death. Life reviews and encounters with beings of light. The ARE continues to document cases where his predictions and spiritual guidance prove accurate decades later. Soul's ultimate destiny. Continuous expansion of awareness without the limitations of physical form. The ARE archives contain dozens of readings describing this state as both achievable and inevitable for all souls willing to pursue spiritual growth. Radiated divine love and wisdom, becoming channels for healing and guidance. These souls had essentially created heaven on earth by aligning their will with divine purpose, demonstrating that the afterlife experience begins with our current spiritual choices. Their lives became testimonies to the accessible nature of divine consciousness, in continuous learning, creative collaboration with other evolved beings, and service to souls still evolving through lower planes. They participate in cosmic councils that guide universal evolution, contribute to the spiritual development of planets and civilizations, and experience direct communion with the creative forces that govern existence. This heaven is dynamic, purposeful, and eternally expanding rather than static reward for good behavior. Consciousness involves complete memory restoration. Souls remember all their incarnations, understand the lessons learned through each experience, and perceive the perfect justice of their evolutionary journey. Fear, pain, and limitation become impossible because consciousness has transcended the illusions that create suffering. Yet this state isn't achieved through divine favoritism, but through the natural progression of souls who consistently choose love over fear, service over selfishness, and wisdom over ignorance through countless opportunities across multiple lifetimes. Eventual heavenly realization, making this elevated state both earned and inevitable for every soul willing to pursue spiritual evolution. Lifetimes. Souls in this state experience the accumulated weight of their negative karma, finding themselves surrounded by thought forms and experiences that reflect their spiritual condition. The ARE documentation shows Cayce emphasized that even this state serves the ultimate purpose of spiritual education and eventual redemption. Souls in this condition experience the full impact of pain they've caused others, the emptiness of selfish pursuits, and the isolation that results from rejecting love and compassion. They remain in this state not because God punishes them, but because their consciousness has become so attuned to negative patterns that they cannot perceive or accept the love and help constantly offered by more evolved souls. Their own thought forms create their hellish experience, provided disturbing details about hellish existence that reveal the precision of spiritual law. Souls experience exactly what they've given. Those who caused fear experience terror. Those who inflicted pain suffer proportionally, and those who chose hatred find themselves surrounded by hostility. Yet even in these conditions, opportunities for redemption remain available. Higher beings continuously attempt to reach trapped souls with love and guidance, but these influences can only be received when the suffering soul genuinely desires change and accepts responsibility for their condition. Love and service create happiness, while selfishness creates misery. Once this lesson penetrates consciousness, the soul begins its gradual ascent toward higher spiritual planes. Actions, genuine remorse for harm caused, and persistent effort to develop love and compassion. This process might require numerous incarnations and intermediate spiritual states, but redemption remains possible for every soul willing to embrace the difficult path of spiritual growth. Incarnation. These realms, detailed in hundreds of ARE archive sessions, function as cosmic schools where souls work through specific lessons, karmic patterns, and spiritual developments needed for continued evolution. Each plane corresponds to particular levels of consciousness and spiritual understanding, allowing souls to associate with others of similar development while receiving guidance from more advanced beings. Explaining how souls engage in various activities designed to expand their consciousness and resolve karmic obligations. Some souls study universal laws and cosmic principles, while others work to heal emotional wounds carried from their earthly experiences. Many participate in service activities, helping newly transitioned souls adjust to non-physical existence or assisting in the spiritual development of planets and civilizations. The Sleeping Prophet emphasized that these planes offer unlimited opportunities for growth and learning without physical limitations. Planes designed for fundamental lessons about love, compassion, and universal connection. Movement between planes occurs as consciousness expands and spiritual understanding deepens. Studies or service activities, that they delay reincarnation for extended periods, while others quickly prepare for return to physical existence to work on specific karmic lessons. The choice belongs entirely to the individual soul, guided by their spiritual advisors. Every choice toward love, wisdom, and service contributes to our eternal progression. Cayce emphasized that preparation for these realms begins now through meditation, study of spiritual principles, service to others, and the development of qualities that will serve consciousness in any realm of existence, humanity's greatest mysteries. According to his trance sessions, documented extensively by the ARE, death involves the gradual separation of soul consciousness from the physical body, beginning with the release of the etheric body that maintains vital functions. This process can occur instantly in sudden death or gradually, over time in prolonged illness, but the essential pattern remains consistent. Consciousness simply shifts its focus from physical to spiritual dimensions. Death triggers what Cayce called the life review, a comprehensive examination of the recently completed incarnation where souls experience every action, thought, and emotion from their lifetime, from both their own perspective and that of everyone they affected. This review occurs in the presence of spiritual guides and is conducted with perfect love and understanding rather than judgment or condemnation. Souls see clearly how their choices contributed to spiritual growth or created karmic obligations, providing essential information for planning their continued development. Period varies greatly depending on the soul's spiritual development, the circumstances of their death, and their understanding of spiritual principles while incarnated, according to their consciousness level. However, they also carry forward their habitual thought patterns, emotional reactions, and spiritual development achieved during physical life, which determines their initial post-mortem experiences and the spiritual plane they naturally inhabit. Love and compassion, and maintained faith in continued existence, adapt much more easily to post-mortem reality. Those who denied spiritual existence, lived entirely materialistically, or developed strong negative patterns experience confusion, fear, and difficulty accepting their new condition, potentially creating temporary hellish experiences until they can adjust to spiritual reality. Ensuring that every action, thought, and intention creates corresponding consequences that must eventually be balanced. His readings, preserved in the ARE archives, described karma not as punishment, but as cosmic education designed to teach souls the effects of their choices and guide them towards spiritual wisdom. This law operates with mathematical precision across multiple lifetimes, ensuring perfect justice while providing unlimited opportunities for learning, growth, and redemption through countless incarnations. Perspective, but reveals perfect balance when viewed across the soul's complete evolutionary journey through multiple incarnations and spiritual planes. Pain they've inflicted. This experiential learning continues until souls develop genuine empathy, wisdom, and love that prevents repetition of harmful patterns. Karma serves spiritual education rather than cosmic revenge. Experiences specifically designed to address their karmic obligations and spiritual development needs. This pre-incarnation planning ensures that every soul receives exactly the experiences necessary for their continued evolution, though free will during incarnation determines how effectively they utilize these opportunities, an opportunity to balance past actions or develop needed spiritual qualities, while every blessing represents earned reward for positive choices made across multiple lifetimes. This perspective encourages personal responsibility, compassion for others' struggles, and patience with the gradual process of spiritual evolution that unfolds across countless incarnations and experiences in both physical and spiritual realms. Afterlife experience begins with daily choices made during physical incarnation, making every moment an opportunity to influence our eternal destiny. His documented sessions, available through ARE research, provided specific practices and principles that help souls develop the consciousness necessary for positive post-mortem experiences. These preparations don't require dramatic religious conversion, but involve gradual development of love, wisdom, service, and spiritual understanding that naturally align consciousness with higher spiritual planes, and can navigate spiritual realms with confidence rather than fear or confusion. This spiritual foundation becomes invaluable during the transition process. Positive afterlife experiences. This service doesn't require grand gestures, but can manifest through daily kindness, patience, forgiveness, and genuine care for others' spiritual and material welfare throughout ordinary life circumstances. Knowledge for navigating post-mortem existence. Souls who comprehend these principles during physical life can cooperate more effectively with spiritual guides, make wiser choices about their continued development, and avoid the confusion that traps unprepared souls in lower spiritual planes. Destructive behavior. This inner work creates the pure consciousness necessary for experiencing higher spiritual realms while preventing the self-created hellish experiences that result from unresolved negative patterns. The goal isn't perfection, but sincere commitment to spiritual growth and the gradual development of divine qualities that naturally align consciousness with heavenly existence. Destiny of every soul is eventual reunion with the divine source from which they originally emerged. But this return occurs as fully individualized beings who have gained complete experience of existence through their evolutionary journey. This process requires countless incarnations, experiences in multiple spiritual planes, and the gradual development of perfect love, wisdom, and creative power that matches divine consciousness. No soul is ever lost or abandoned, regardless of their failures or the duration of their spiritual development. And love. They serve as guides for souls still evolving, participate in universal planning and development, and engage in creative activities beyond current human comprehension, developing both strength and compassion, and gradually transcending all limitations that prevent full divine expression. Some souls progress rapidly through this development, while others require extensive time and experience, but all eventually reach the same destination of divine reunion. Cosmic educational process. Every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure, every act of love and moment of selfishness contributes to the soul's eventual perfection and divine reunion. This perspective transforms suffering from meaningless pain into meaningful education and elevates every moment into opportunity for spiritual advancement. Souls trapped in hellish consciousness will eventually learn, grow, and ascend toward higher understanding, while souls experiencing heavenly bliss continue evolving toward even greater cosmic participation. Cayce's vision reveals existence as an infinite adventure of consciousness expansion that culminates in perfect divine union while preserving the unique individual journey that makes each soul's contribution to universal creation irreplaceable and eternally valuable. Cayce's revelations about heaven and hell fundamentally transforms how we approach every aspect of current existence by revealing the eternal significance of seemingly mundane daily choices. When we recognize that our thoughts, emotions, actions, and relationships directly shape our post-mortem experience and spiritual evolution across multiple lifetimes, every moment becomes an opportunity to contribute positively to our ultimate destiny. This perspective eliminates the fear-based motivations common in traditional religious teachings and replaces them with love-based inspiration for spiritual development and service to others, necessary for positive transition experiences and continued evolution. These practices, documented throughout ARE research materials, don't require withdrawal from normal life, but enhance every activity with spiritual purpose and eternal significance. Practice forgiveness and understanding. Difficulties with others reveal our own spiritual weaknesses needing attention, and opportunities for kindness and support allow expression of divine love that benefits both giver and receiver. This approach transforms ordinary relationships into sacred spiritual practice that prepares consciousness for the love-based reality of higher spiritual planes. Spiritual expression rather than ends in themselves. Cayce's teachings suggest evaluating these activities based on their contribution to spiritual development, service to others, and alignment with divine principles, rather than purely material success. This doesn't require poverty or withdrawal from society, but brings spiritual purpose to material activities that transforms them into opportunities for demonstrating divine qualities and assisting others' spiritual and material welfare. Continue your spiritual journey informed by these profound teachings, Remember that every soul eventually reaches the same destination of divine reunion, but the path you choose through your daily decisions determines the ease, beauty, and service opportunities available along the way. Subscribe to explore more of Edgar Cayce's revolutionary spiritual insights, share this understanding with others who might benefit from eternal perspective, and begin today implementing the principles that create heavenly consciousness while still in physical form. Your eternal adventure has already begun. These teachings simply help you navigate it more consciously and effectively. Have you ever felt your beloved dog's presence after they passed away? That gentle touch, familiar bark, or warm energy that seems impossible yet undeniably real. Edgar Cayce, America's most documented psychic, provided extraordinary insights into this profound spiritual phenomenon that millions of pet owners experience worldwide. Your connection with your canine companion transcends physical death in ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. Through thousands of documented readings, Cayce revealed that the spiritual bonds we form with our dogs create lasting energy connections that persist beyond their earthly transition, offering comfort and continued communication. This exploration will reveal Cayce's specific teachings about animal consciousness, the survival of pet spirits, and the documented methods through which our dogs continue reaching out to us. We'll examine verified cases, understand the spiritual mechanics behind these communications, and learn how to recognize these precious messages from beyond. As someone who has spent decades studying Cayce's extensive archives through the Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, I've witnessed countless testimonies that validate these extraordinary claims. The evidence suggests our dogs possess souls capable of transcending physical limitations through love's eternal power. But before we explore how your dog communicates from the other side, we must first understand what Edgar Cayce revealed about the very nature of animal consciousness and why these spiritual connections form so powerfully during their earthly lives with us. Edgar Cayce's readings consistently described animals, particularly dogs, as possessing individual consciousness and spiritual essence that survives physical death. Unlike traditional religious teachings of his era, Cayce emphasized that animals develop souls through their loving relationships with humans, creating permanent spiritual bonds that transcend earthly existence. According to Cayce's documented sessions, dogs who form deep emotional connections with their human families undergo spiritual development that elevates their consciousness beyond basic instinct. This evolution occurs through the exchange of unconditional love, loyalty, and mutual care that characterizes the human-canine relationship throughout their shared lifetime. Different spiritual traditions have varying perspectives on animal consciousness, but Cayce's readings were uniquely specific about dogs' capacity for individual spiritual growth. He described how their pure, unconditional love serves as a catalyst for soul development, creating what he called soul patterns that persist after physical death. Think of your dog's consciousness like a photograph developing in spiritual solution. Each moment of love, each act of loyalty, each shared experience adds depth and permanence to their spiritual essence. This analogy helps explain why dogs with stronger human bonds demonstrate more pronounced post-death communication abilities. This spiritual foundation explains why the most profound after-death communications occur between dogs and humans who shared intense emotional bonds. Understanding this principle prepares us to explore the specific mechanisms through which these evolved canine souls reach across dimensions to maintain their precious connections with us. Cayce's readings revealed that deceased dogs communicate through what he termed thought-form projections, concentrated spiritual energy that can influence physical reality and human consciousness. These projections manifest as familiar scents, sounds, physical sensations, or direct telepathic impressions that carry unmistakable signatures of your beloved companion's unique personality and energy. During documented sessions, Cayce described numerous cases where departed dogs successfully transmitted comfort, warnings, and loving reassurance to their grieving families. One remarkable reading involved a German shepherd who appeared repeatedly to warn his elderly owner about household dangers, demonstrating that protective instincts persist beyond physical death through spiritual consciousness. These communications can vary significantly in intensity and frequency, depending on several factors, including the strength of the original bond, the dog's level of spiritual development, and the human's receptivity to subtle spiritual impressions. Some people experience vivid visual appearances, while others sense gentle touches or hear familiar barks echoing from empty rooms. However, Cayce also cautioned that not all perceived communications are authentic spiritual contacts. Grief-induced wishful thinking, electromagnetic disturbances, and other dogs in the neighborhood can create false impressions that desperate pet owners might misinterpret as messages from their departed companions. The key to recognizing genuine spiritual communication lies in understanding the specific signs and timing patterns that Cayce identified through his extensive research. These authentic markers help distinguish real spiritual contact from wishful thinking, preparing us to explore practical methods for enhancing our receptivity to these precious messages. According to Edgar Cayce's detailed observations, authentic communications from departed dogs typically occur during quiet, contemplative moments when your mind is relaxed and receptive. These genuine, spiritual contacts often manifest as sudden, unexpected experiences that carry emotional intensity far beyond ordinary memories or wishful thinking about your beloved companion. Cayce documented specific patterns in authentic canine communications, familiar scents appearing without physical source, characteristic sounds like collar jingling or paw steps on familiar surfaces, and distinctive physical sensations such as the feeling of your dog's weight on the bed or gentle nudges against your leg during emotional moments. Visual appearances, while less common, follow particular characteristics that distinguish them from imagination or grief hallucinations. Cayce noted that genuine spiritual manifestations appear solid and three-dimensional initially, then fade gradually rather than vanishing abruptly, and typically occur in locations that held special significance for your relationship with your dog. The emotional quality accompanying authentic communications provides another, reliable indicator of genuine spiritual contact. Real messages from departed dogs carry distinctive energetic signatures of peace, comfort, and unconditional love that produce lasting positive effects on your emotional state, rather than increasing anxiety or desperate longing. Timing patterns also reveal authenticity. Genuine communications often coincide with anniversaries, moments of particular grief, or when you face significant life challenges where your dog's comfort would be most meaningful. These synchronicities suggest purposeful spiritual intervention rather than random psychological phenomena, leading us to explore methods for enhancing our ability to receive these precious spiritual gifts. Edgar Cayce consistently emphasized that humans can develop greater sensitivity to spiritual communications through specific practices that quiet mental chatter and heighten intuitive awareness. His readings suggested that meditation, particularly during dawn or dusk hours, creates optimal conditions for receiving subtle impressions from departed canine companions seeking to maintain loving connections. Creating sacred space in areas where you shared meaningful moments with your dog enhances the likelihood of spiritual contact, according to Cayce's documented recommendations. This might involve sitting quietly in your dog's favorite spot, holding cherished toys or blankets, while maintaining an attitude of loving receptivity rather than desperate seeking or demanding proof. The practice of automatic writing, which Cayce often recommended for spiritual communication, can be adapted for connecting with departed pets. Holding a pen while thinking lovingly about your dog, allowing words or images to flow without conscious direction, sometimes produces meaningful messages that carry distinctive characteristics of your companion's personality and concerns. Prayer and intention setting play crucial roles in establishing clear spiritual channels for communication. Cayce suggested asking specifically for protection from negative influences while expressing genuine love and gratitude for your dog's continued presence. creating positive energetic conditions that attract authentic spiritual contact rather than deceptive influences. However, Cayce also warned against becoming obsessed with spiritual communication or demanding constant proof of your dog's continued existence. Balanced spiritual openness, combined with healthy skepticism and careful discernment, prepares us to explore the documented healing benefits that these profound connections offer to grieving pet owners. Edgar Cayce's readings revealed that authentic communications from departed dogs serve a profound healing purpose, helping their human companions process grief while discovering deeper spiritual truths about the eternal nature of love and consciousness. These experiences often transform devastating loss into opportunities for spiritual growth and expanded understanding of life's continuity beyond physical death. Documented cases in Cayce's archives describe how ongoing spiritual connections with departed pets helped grieving owners develop enhanced intuitive abilities, deeper compassion for all living beings, and stronger faith in spiritual dimensions of existence. The unconditional love that dogs demonstrate becomes a bridge to understanding universal spiritual principles that govern consciousness and connection. The healing process typically unfolds in stages, beginning with comfort and reassurance that your beloved companion continues existing in spiritual form, progressing to meaningful guidance during difficult life transitions, and ultimately expanding into broader spiritual awakening that encompasses all relationships and life experiences with greater depth and meaning. Many individuals report that communications from their departed dogs help them recognize similar spiritual connections with deceased human family members, suggesting that our canine companions serve as spiritual teachers who introduce us to broader dimensions of consciousness and communication that exist beyond physical limitations and ordinary sensory perception. This therapeutic aspect of canine spiritual communication demonstrates how love transcends all boundaries, including death itself, creating lasting benefits that extend far beyond initial grief relief. Understanding these healing dynamics prepares us to explore specific techniques that Edgar Cayce recommended for maintaining these precious spiritual connections throughout your lifetime. Edgar Cayce provided specific techniques for maintaining regular spiritual contact with departed dogs, emphasizing consistency, patience, and genuine love as essential elements for successful ongoing communication. His readings suggested establishing daily quiet periods dedicated to sending love and gratitude to your departed companion, while remaining openly receptive to any impressions or responses. Dream communication represents one of Cayce's most recommended methods for connecting with departed pets, as sleep states naturally lower barriers between physical and spiritual dimensions. Keeping a dream journal beside your bed and recording any appearances or interactions with your dog, no matter how brief or seemingly insignificant, often reveals patterns and messages over time. Photographic meditation, a technique Cayce endorsed for spiritual connection, involves holding a favorite photograph of your dog while entering meditative states and projecting love toward their image. This practice sometimes triggers telepathic communications, sudden insights about your pet's current state, or sensory experiences like feeling their presence or catching familiar scents. Nature-based communication sessions, conducted in outdoor locations where you and your dog shared happy times, can enhance spiritual receptivity according to Cayce's environmental recommendations. Natural settings provide fewer electromagnetic disturbances and create peaceful conditions conducive to subtle spiritual impressions that might be masked in busy indoor environments. The practice of grateful acknowledgement, where you verbally thank your departed dog for signs and communications you've received, strengthens the spiritual connection and encourages continued contact. Cayce emphasized that appreciation and recognition from the human side validates these communications and maintains the energetic bridge between dimensions, leading us to examine scientific perspectives that support these extraordinary spiritual phenomena. Contemporary research in consciousness studies and quantum physics provides intriguing support for Edgar Cayce's assertions about post-death communication between humans and animals. Studies in quantum entanglement demonstrate how consciousness can influence physical reality across distances, suggesting possible mechanisms for the spiritual communications that Cayce described in his extensive readings about departed pets. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research into morphic resonance and the extended mind offers scientific frameworks that align remarkably with Cayce's descriptions of thought-form projections and telepathic connections between humans and animals. Sheldrake's documented experiments with dogs who sense their owner's return demonstrate that consciousness operates beyond conventional spatial and temporal limitations. Neuroscientific studies of grief and memory processing reveal how emotional bonds create lasting neural patterns that remain active long after loss, potentially explaining the vivid sensory experiences that many people report when communicating with departed pets. These findings support Cayce's emphasis on love as the fundamental force that maintains spiritual connections across dimensional boundaries. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, research has captured what some investigators believe are voices of departed animals, including dogs, providing potential technological validation for spiritual communication claims. While controversial, these recordings demonstrate anomalous sounds that occurred during sessions specifically intended to contact deceased pets, echoing Cayce's descriptions of spiritual manifestations. Near-death experience research consistently documents encounters with beloved animals during clinical death episodes, supporting Cayce's teachings about consciousness survival and continued relationships beyond physical death. These scientific developments create a bridge between ancient spiritual wisdom and modern understanding, preparing us to explore common obstacles that might prevent successful spiritual communication with departed dogs. Edgar Cayce identified several common barriers that prevent people from recognizing or receiving communications from their departed dogs, with excessive grief and desperate longing creating the most significant obstacles to clear spiritual reception. Intense emotional turmoil generates what Cayce described as psychic static that interferes with subtle spiritual impressions, making it difficult to distinguish authentic communications from grief-induced wishful thinking. Skepticism and fear, while sometimes protective against deception, can also block genuine spiritual experiences when taken to extremes. Cayce recommended balanced openness, maintaining healthy discernment while remaining receptive to possibilities beyond conventional understanding. This attitude allows authentic experiences to unfold naturally without the distortion of either desperate belief or rigid denial. Religious conditioning that dismisses animal consciousness or post-death communication creates internal conflict that disrupts spiritual receptivity. Cayce suggested that individuals examine their beliefs honestly, recognizing that love transcends traditional religious boundaries and that God's creation includes all conscious beings capable of growth, development, and eternal existence through divine love. Timing expectations often create frustration when immediate dramatic communications don't occur following a pet's death. Cayce's readings emphasized that spiritual adjustment periods vary significantly, and departed dogs may need time to adapt to non-physical existence before attempting communication. Patience and consistent loving intention create better conditions than demanding immediate proof or contact. Environmental distractions, including electromagnetic interference from modern technology, can mask subtle spiritual communications according to Cayce's sensitivity to energetic influences. Creating quiet, technology-free spaces for spiritual connection enhances receptivity to the gentle impressions through which our beloved dogs reach across dimensions to maintain their precious bonds with us, leading us toward understanding the greater spiritual significance of these eternal relationships. Edgar Cayce's profound insights into canine spiritual communication reveal a beautiful truth about the nature of love and consciousness, that genuine bonds transcend all physical limitations, including death itself. Your dog's ability to reach across dimensions demonstrates that love creates permanent spiritual connections that enrich both human and animal souls throughout eternity, serving purposes far beyond temporary earthly companionship. These spiritual relationships offer practical guidance for living with greater compassion, intuition, and awareness of the interconnectedness of all consciousness. As you develop sensitivity to your departed dog's communications, you naturally become more attuned to subtle spiritual dimensions that enhance your relationships with all living beings and deepen your understanding of life's sacred nature. Realistic expectations about ongoing spiritual communication include understanding that contacts may become less frequent over time as your dog's soul progresses to new levels of spiritual development. This natural evolution doesn't diminish your bond, but transforms it into something even more beautiful, a foundation of eternal love that continues supporting both of your spiritual journeys through multiple dimensions of existence. Remember to share your experiences with others who might benefit from understanding that love never dies, while remaining respectful of those who aren't ready to accept these possibilities. Your willingness to explore spiritual communication with your departed dog contributes to humanity's growing recognition that consciousness, love, and relationships extend far beyond physical limitations. If this exploration has resonated with your experience or sparked curiosity about your own spiritual connections with departed pets, consider joining communities dedicated to studying Edgar Cayce's teachings and supporting others on similar journeys. The Association for Research and Enlightenment continues preserving and sharing these invaluable insights that demonstrate how our beloved dogs remain eternally connected to our hearts and souls, proving that love truly is the most powerful force in all dimensions of existence.